A couple quick comments on the game last Saturday. Yesterday was a tough day. You have those guys that play their hearts out. I thought after going back and looking at the film, obviously we could not get anything going on the offensive side of the ball. And one of the things that I was hoping was give us a spark, we were able to execute the fake punt. I thought that was a heck of a play by their returner. I thought Gunnar Brecky in a couple of situations not taking a tough shot, on that play, holding on to the ball. That was a really courageous play. But the one play that stands out to me in that game is Gunnar at the end. After we turn the ball over and they're scooping it up and running down for what you think is going to be an apparent touchdown. And just to see the heart that kid showed and displayed and the fight that he displayed in that moment. And he was, he's a tremendous competitor, and that showed me a lot about the type of young man that he is. And so I was very impressed with that. I thought our defense did a tremendous job of, with one exception, gave up the 65-yard play, lost an edge, and it was just one guy being out of position, and that's all it takes. Everybody's got to do their 111th. And the Logan kid had a really, really good game, big, hard runner, got out on that one long run. And really, other than that, we did what we talked about going into this game, and that was make these guys earn it. Because they do have good skilled talent, and the quarterback is very efficient within their system. And you see, I think that plays out in his numbers. He's had both the games he's played and started, he's had good numbers. They do a good job of getting the ball to their playmakers on the perimeter. Even when we missed tackles, our guys were running to the ball to kind of mitigate the ability for them to get an explosive play out of it. And while they got their yards, I thought our defensive staff did a great job getting these guys prepared to play, and really executed the game plan well, with one glaring exception, and that's we've got to do a better job of taking the ball away. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we really tried to streamline some things at halftime and dial in on a few runs that we felt like we could execute well. And I think you saw that play out in the second half in two critical drives. And then, I again had an opportunity in a 2-minute situation, and we're not able to convert it. Really, I don't know how much you guys watched the film, but the one thing that was very obvious is, they were in the 3-man rush. Chris broke the pocket. Number 90 obviously was a problem for us. I think we really missed Dylan Mahoney in this game, and having to shuffle some guys around. But that guy gave us some problems on the edge. Chris is getting ready to launch, and Herbert's uncovered. It's going to be a touchdown unless he, is not able to field the ball. And so that's the margin of victory. The margin of defeat are very, very small for us right now. And again, very, very proud of the way these guys competed. I think a lot of teams, as I mentioned after the game, down 20-0 midway through the third quarter and really don't have anything going. And for them to rise up and compete the way they did, and defensively to get stops the way we did. Keep doing that, we're going to be okay around here. A couple things on the injury front. One that's kind of been a long time coming. We just weren't quite 100% sure on it until recently. Brandon Brown, senior wide receiver, is going to have a season-ending surgery. Kid battled through it, tried to get some, try to do some kind of stopgap solutions for him to get him through the season, and played in a couple of games and just not able to go anymore. And so that's going to unfortunately end his career. He's going to have to get that surgery, and great member of this team, and great kid, and so I want to wish him the best. And then Dylan Mahoney's going to be a little bit week to week right now. He's got kind of a turf toe thing going on, and those can be kind of sticky sometimes. You just never know how quickly they're going to bounce back, and so hopefully we'll get him back sooner than later. And then Tucker Yates, similar. Hopefully he'll be able to go this week. Had a little bit of a shoulder deal. Didn't really play a whole lot in this game this last Saturday, so kind of just depends on how he bounces back.
You guys, some of the adjustments you guys made in the second half offensively, Chad was talking about some of the gaps and stuff you guys are doing. Is that something you can carry forward?
It's really been one of our more productive plays all year, so it's something that we've got to. But again, it's a little bit. We were really fortunate on a couple of the explosive runs that we had the exact right play called into the pressure they brought. They brought an overload blitz outside twice on one of them, and they ended up with two guys outside the kick out block and nobody in the gap where we were running the ball. And then on another one, I think it was Gunners later in the game, they blitzed the backside gap and we were able to wall that off, and they were short on the front side. And so I think the one thing about Weber State that's interesting is, while they do blitz about 40% of the time, it's really more it's not going to be kind of the overloaded blitzes like we saw against NAU. And so I think that they're going to obviously see that and say, hey, we don't want to put these guys in a position where they can pick and choose and hit those explosive runs. But that was really it was good to see that we were able to dial up some things, because the reality is we struggle throwing the football, for a number of reasons. In drop back situations, protection has become an issue, and we also need to do a better job of creating separation with our receivers. And so those are things that we've talked extensively about over the last 48 hours in terms of how we're going to produce. We've got to produce more in the passing game. We can't be one-dimensional.
Jeff, nobody likes losing, but are there things that you're happy about, that you're pleased with, that you build for the future?
I think the one thing that I see is just, these guys fight. And one of the things that we've talked a lot about around here is process over product. I used the analogy yesterday that, I'm not a carpenter, but I could probably build a house. The process isn't going to be right, and the product's not going to be very good. As a football coach, it's hard to be disciplined and stick to the plan and stick to the process, because there's going to be painful moments that come as a result of that. But I've been really pleased with the way that these guys have understood that what we're trying to do is build a really strong foundation here that's going to last, and it's not going to be a game-to-game program. It's going to be a season-to-season program where we're looked at as, hey, they did that right, and they're building something that's special and significant. And I think these kids get that there's more to this than just what goes on between the white lines. I think they've embraced that part of it, and I think they appreciate it. I couldn't be more pleased with the way that they responded, even in really tough, adverse situations.
Do the young kids have the talent to build this program?
I think that's what recruiting is. We've got to go out each year, and you're trying to recruit over the kids that are in your program. You're trying to get better than what you have. And I think we've got a really good freshman class, not just from the standpoint of their ability to achieve on the field, but the type of young men they are, and the type of character that they exhibit. And I think that your money is made as a coach in recruiting and development of players. And so it's not just what they come in as, it's what they leave as. And I think that if you have that process done correctly, you're going to look at it and you're going to go, okay, this isn't just about getting these guys bigger, stronger, faster. This is about teaching them how to handle their business and overcome adversity and deal with things in their life that might not be easy all the time. And so those are the things that I really feel like I learned a lot about in my 20 plus years as a high school coach, college coach at different places that I've tried to pay attention to. And so I think that I like our freshman class a tremendous amount. We've got some redshirt freshmen that are starting to produce and doing good things for us. And we've got to stack another good class on top of this. And so that's what it's about. I was talking to Jerome Sowers before the game. He said, this league is funny. He says usually the team that wins it has the veteran quarterback and the best transfers. And I don't know. I guess maybe that is true to a certain degree. You've got to do a great job of developing the kids that are in your program, and you do have to probably get a guy or two that can have an impact on your program through that transfer pool. And so, those are things you pay attention to in recruiting. Just keep working away.
Let's talk about Weber State. What do you expect from them?
Well, first of all, Jay Hill is a longtime friend of mine. Really, really good person, really good football coach. And you can see kind of the process that he has implemented there at Weber. This is a team that's played a lot of close games. You look at it, and they kind of have the one game against Utah State, a good FBS opponent that doesn't go very well for them. They lose an overtime game to South Dakota, beat Sac State 14-7, beat UC Davis 38-35 on the last-second field goal, and beat Portland State 14-10. And so what I see there is I see a guy that's been starting a quarterback for him for 2.5 years, that experience at quarterback that is producing and making plays for them late in games when they need it. And so I think they're I think they're one of the more physical teams in the league. It's one thing that stands out to me immediately. I think these guys play a really physical brand of football. They're committed to running the football on offense. They do have a couple transfer guys that are pretty good players. They're tight end number 87, the kid from San Jose State. They target him in the passing game a lot. Look for him in seams, and I think that the quarterback, the Clark kid, has a strong enough arm to hit those things. Really looking vertical passing game, 87-1. Those are the guys that they try to stretch the field with. I really like their running back, 26. I think he's a really shifty, fast player. I think he played as a true freshman last year, had some good numbers, and has been a good player for him. And then the Clark kid, it's like, he's kind of sneaky because he's a big physical guy with a strong arm, and he kind of has that pro-style pocket guy, but he's made a lot of big plays for him with his feet and design quarterback runs as well as scramble situations. And so a lot of their explosive plays is coming off of him either extending the play outside the pocket and launching, or using his feet to make plays outside of offense. And so That's what they're kind of committed to doing on that side. I think they've got a bunch of really big, mature dudes up front. I really consider their offensive style is maybe not quite as committed to running the ball as what UND was, but their offensive line is big and physical like that. And I think they've got better guys on the perimeter, and they've got a better guy in terms of throwing the ball at quarterback than North Dakota. On defense, I'm going to tell you right now, there's 23. That guy can play probably just about anywhere. He's a big-time player. They list him at 6'1", 235. I saw him at the media days. I was like, you kind of look around and you're like, okay, that guy's tall. All right, that guy. Who's that guy? And he looks like the mannequin up in front of our office up there. I mean, he's put together pretty well. He's very, very physical. Like I said, I think Trayvon Johnson, I believe is his name. And I think as far as just dudes that I've seen on film defensively in this conference right now, I haven't watched everybody very, very close, but certainly that's the one guy that stands out to me as probably the best overall player on the defensive side. He's got a lot of versatility. They'll put him on the edge and rush the passer with him. They'll play him in the box. They'll drop him into coverage. And so he's a big-time player. I really like what they do on defense. It's ironic. He just looks like Utah. I've played Utah a number of times when I was at Boise, and certainly being in the Pac-12 at Washington State and Washington. And, they play a lot of man-to-man coverage, and they pack the box. And they're going to be committed to stopping the run. And they're going to challenge you on the perimeter. And so that's what I think. It's not like, gosh, what are we going to see? I think we know exactly what we're going to see. And I think they executed very well. And as I mentioned before, they are physical. They are physical. Obviously, Trayvon stands out, but they have a number of very, very good players on the defense.
Having said that, how much of an onus do you think this week falls on the passing game, trying to really get that cranked up?
They lead the league in passing defense, and they challenge everybody on the perimeter. And so they're going to play tight coverage. They pressure very, very well. Not just with blitzes, but they have guys that have some juice and they can win one-on-one matchups on the edge. And so I think it's going to be, it's going to be something to pay attention to. We've got to be able to do some things in the passing game to get them out of playing straight man, enough to get them to play a little bit of zone and create some things for us in some other areas. But I think that's going to be very interesting. This is going to be a slugfest.
They bring Trayvon Johnson off the edge a lot.
Not as much, and I think some of it has to do maybe with the games that I'm watching. It's stylistic, it's like, for example, against Portland State last week, who's not really known as a vertical passing game team. He played more in the box and was a guy that was more into kind of condensing their running lanes inside. But when they played some teams that throw the ball or they get into third and long situations, you'll see him off the edge, and he does a nice job there. He's got 5 TFLs, a sack, 38 tackles. They've got a couple of really productive inside linebackers, good defensive linemen. You look at it and you go, I think there was a bunch of guys that have played at Snow College. I think that's their farm system, and so they're probably got I would guess that without looking at it, they probably have about. I know when we were at Utah State, a quarter of our roster was always going to be LDS return mission kids, and because you got to be smart about how you can't have half your roster because you're turning it over potentially, but. I would imagine that they have a lot of those guys that are mature guys that have been around, and physically they're more mature and a little bit more focused on things.
Do you expect to continue using both quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think we have to. I think there's things that Chris does and has continued. One of the things that he told Sam Richardson, one of our interns, he said, just pretty soon this thing's going to slow down and I'm going to be good. Don't worry about it. And so that indicates to me that the game's still fast for him. And when that game does slow down, I think we'll see a marked improvement in his ability to make decisions. And Tyler still gives us some things. I thought Tyler did a really good job of extending plays and creating some opportunities. Took some big shots early in the game and made good decisions with the football. Threw it away when there wasn't anything there. But obviously, Chris gives us an added dimension in terms of being able to stretch the defense horizontally in the run game.
Do you think we'll see Tyler start again in kind of the same situation, or will it be based on?
I think a lot of that depends on the week of practice. Like I said, I don't think Chris practiced exceptionally well. I think I made sure and told him that the snow was in the forecast for tomorrow, so to dress appropriately for practice. By the way, on a side note, yesterday was Chris's 18th birthday, and so. I couldn't remember exactly what the date was, but we don't have to talk about him being 17 years old.
the offensive line, if Dillon's not able to go, you tried a couple guys at left tackle there. So who do you like best? Or I guess how's that shuffle out?
Yeah, well, we started the game with Mitch going over to left tackle from right tackle. I think he's probably our most athletic guy on the edge. And then we put, started with Patrick at right tackle, and then we slid Monty. Got nicked up for a little bit. We slid Patrick into guard, put Caleb Gillis at tackle, ended up with Monty at guard and Caleb at tackle at the end of the game. And so the good news is we've got a few guys that we can use there, and we just got to keep massaging and see what's going to work best for us.
Jeff, is one of the problems with the offense blocking the offensive line?
I think our offensive line has been one of our more consistent units. I think we struggled in pass protection, certainly against NAU last week, and I think some of that was one-on-one matchups. And when we have those matchups that are not in our favor, we've got to do a good job of trying to chip our way out and leave a tight end in, slide the protection that way. And I think that was something that, as a coaching staff, in hindsight, we could have done a much better job of, is helping those guys out, specifically on number 90. When it's one guy that's really kind of working you, you've got to have a plan to be able to mitigate that a little bit.
Weaver's offensive line mentioned that they have some big strong guys, but just compared to some of the other units in the league, what do you think they stack up?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think size-wise, like I said, they're very similar to UND. They're a bunch of big, strong dudes up front. I think that they stay on their double teams a little bit better than some of the other units. So they do a good job of getting first-level movement, climbing to the linebackers, and they're really pretty good in pass protection. They don't give up a bunch of sacks, and so I think they're a really solid unit.
I wanted to ask about, obviously running back depth is a strength of this team. It seems like Logan Jones, every time he touches it, he's doing something with, I think, over 18 yards per touch, but he's only touched it 9 times. Is there any consideration?
Well, so the one thing you got to remember is a bunch of those are on kickoff returns. I don't think those numbers are really, that's not representative. There's nobody touching him for 19 yards. So
okay.
I think you got to look at how you're examining those numbers. He hasn't had a lot of carries, obviously.
Right.
I think that's what you got to look at, is what is he getting when he's touching the ball from the backfield in the same situation that Chad Gunner's in. And but does he need to touch the ball more on kickoff return? Yes. We've got to dial up some plays for him, and I think he has a little different element than some of the other backs. But I don't know that he's in a position to take carries away from Chad Gunner right now, but obviously the guy's a sophomore and a young player who's done some good things for us, and we're glad he's here. And so, as you mentioned, I think you got to be careful in how you interpret some of those numbers sometimes. But I do think he's been provided a spark for us. He hit 2 really good returns for us on kickoff. One that kind of got us some momentum there going in late in the third quarter. And I think Logan's a guy that's got the ability to do some things.
Weaver's had 3 close games against conference competition. Do you see anything on tape that you think gives them an edge in close games and maybe kind of allows them to pull out victories like that, especially that one against UC?
Well, I think one is certainly having a veteran quarterback and having a group of guys in front of him that have played a bunch of football as well. And so I think those are things that stand out. I think it's maturity and experience that, and the other thing is they've been running the system for 3 years. And so there's a higher level of familiarity. They've probably been in these situations a little bit more frequently, although by the time we get through this season, maybe we'll lead the country in 2-minute opportunities. I don't know. But that's one thing that would stand out to me, is that there's been some continuity there. They've been there for a while. They basically played with the same guy leading the offense for the better part of 3 seasons. And so I think those are the things that stand out.
You talked about this start being tough for your kids. How about for you? It's kind of new territory for you as well. You're used to winning everywhere you've been.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I was thinking about that the other night. I've been through some tough seasons too. We had a tough season the year I was in Florida. We had a tough season my first year at Washington State. Even our first 2 years at Washington, that was not a cakewalk. We were a little bit outmanned, a little bit outgunned. We went through some tough losses, and so I think I'm well equipped to handle this. I think I'm a very competitive guy, and I certainly am not going to ever be satisfied with anything less than us having success around here. But I also think that I understand that there's a process involved in it, and that sometimes you got to look at it. You got to be realistic, and you can't just be throwing temper tantrums for no reason. You got to understand that, hey, some of this is coaching, some of this is players, some of this is system, some of this is culture, and every single aspect of it has to really examine what's going on. When I do that, John, when I think about it really hard, I really think that our guys have done a good job coaching this team. I mean, I don't see us going, well, we really screwed that up. You know, we mismanaged that and blew that. I don't see that. I see us giving ourselves a chance to be in every game and win every game. And that's what we have to do, is give ourselves a chance. And eventually, you know, we'll stop knocking on that door and we'll kick it down. And I think it'll be like a tidal wave. I mean, I think that we have the discipline to stick to this thing and build it the right way. It's going to be really special.
At the midpoint of the season here, do the expectations for Chris change now that he has some games under his belt? Do you expect him to be able to win games for you guys?
I expect whoever we put out there to win games for us. You know, Coulter, I think it's not a deal where we're going, well, hey, we're just trying to keep this close. You know, I mean, that's not what we're trying to do. I mean, I think you can see the effort that our kids are playing with and the passion that they're playing with. We got to get a win, and it's not going to get any easier. I mean, it's a very good football team. You know, Eastern's coming into town a week from now. It's not. There's no gimmies on the schedule. We're going to have to go earn whatever we get. But I do think that I think that we're making strides. You know, I think that I really believe that if the one thing that probably gives me the most solace out of this whole deal is the way we fought back in the second half. Because if that hadn't occurred, I would really question where we were at in terms of the character of our program and were we implementing the culture that we want the right way. But the fact that those guys fought the way they did, and you know, we're 43 seconds, 38 yards away from having a chance to win a game. And it's a team that everybody picked to win it. Obviously superior skill talent to us. And so I think that speaks to the job that our assistant coaches have done, and to the willingness of our players to buy into what we're asking them to do.
How impressed were you with the job J.L.'s been able to do on the field, given the trouble he's had to deal with off the field at this point?
Yeah, well, you know, I know Sarah both, and it doesn't surprise me. She's an awesome, tough lady, and they're a great family, and I know the Weaver community, I'm sure, has rallied around them. You know, it's like I told our team on Sunday, there's problems and then there's real problems. And, you know, it kind of makes what's going on between the white lines a little less important when you think that there's other things that are of more magnitude. And you know, certainly always think of Jay and Sarah and their family, and very much wish them the best. It doesn't surprise me. Jay's a tough guy, tough-minded guy, just a tremendous football coach and a really good man.
How far do you go back with him? Does it go back further than just?
We were competing against, you know, really when he was at Utah and I was at Boise State, so probably about 8-10 years. And we talked a lot on the phone and exchanged ideas. And I spent time going down to Salt Lake and, you know, spending a couple days with him, exchanging, you know, doing some professional development stuff. And we've always kind of remained like-minded guys, and just really respect him and what he's all about.
Chris, is the spot that he started in there, is that an open competition?
It really has been. In fact, Coach Alexander's been calling the field corner is you can come to his office. It's the unemployment office. You can put your application in, and Gerald's always got something going that way. And so I think he's done a great job of creating competition there. You know, the good news is we've had a lot of guys that have had opportunities to play. The bad news is we haven't settled on one that we feel great about. And so I think Chris competed well. You know, obviously even with Butler's ability, they were not gonna catch John that much. And so you know, they singled up Chris. You know, he didn't give up anything big. They threw those slants, but you know, it's hard to throw slants for 80 yards down the field. I thought that was one thing that was big in this game, was our ability to play good on special teams and not give them short fields.
Is Jacob Hadley still in the mix?
You know, Jacob's actually, I think, is going to end up. See, he had a pretty serious ankle injury, high ankle deal, and then he also has a hand and a wrist, and so he's shut down right now. The idea would be that, you know, we would file the paperwork to get his redshirt year back.
You mentioned we were playing a lot of man on the outside. Any particular players stand out there? I know they have.
Josh Burton is probably the one guy that stands out the most to me. But I think those guys all compete well. I mean, you can tell they're well coached and do a really good job of challenging you, not just at the line of scrimmage, but down the field as well.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.